Nobody talks about Saturday. Good Friday gets the vigils, the veneration of the cross, the 3 hours of darkness. Easter Sunday gets the bells, the flowers, the Alleluia that's been held back for 40 days. The whole world knows those 2 days. But Saturday? Saturday is just quiet. And maybe that's the point. Because Holy Saturday is the most honest day in the entire liturgical year. It's the day the church sits in silence and doesn't pretend to be okay. It's the day the disciples were hiding behind locked doors, not knowing how the story ends. It's the day God, as far as anyone could tell, was in a grave. And here's what I want you to sit with. We know how the story ends. They didn't. Holy Saturday is the day nobody talks about. Maybe it's time we did.
Let's go back. It's Saturday morning. Somewhere outside the walls of Jerusalem, there is a sealed tomb. A large stone rolled across the entrance, stamped with the official seal of Rome. Guards posted outside, because the chief priests had remembered that Jesus said he would rise on the 3rd day, and they weren't taking any chances. Inside the city, the disciples are scattered. Most of them fled the moment Jesus was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane. Peter denied him 3 times before the rooster crowed. Judas is already dead. John, the youngest, the one Jesus called the beloved disciple, had stood at the foot of the cross. But now even he is gone, behind a locked door somewhere, trying to make sense of the wreckage. And the women, Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James, Salome, they had watched the crucifixion from a distance. They had seen where the body was laid, and now they are waiting, because Jewish law forbids them from going to the tomb on the Sabbath. So they wait, all of them, waiting, grieving, afraid. Here's something we often forget. The disciples were not waiting for the resurrection. They had heard Jesus speak about it. He had told them plainly, not once, but 3 times what was going to happen. The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him. And when he is killed, after 3 days he will rise. Mark 9:31. They had heard it, and they had not understood it. Or perhaps they had understood it and simply couldn't believe it was possible. Because when the man you believed was the Messiah, the one who was supposed to overthrow Rome and restore Israel, ends up executed like a criminal on a Roman cross, faith doesn't just bend. For many of them, it's shattered. The road to Emmaus tells us exactly what the disciples were thinking on that Saturday. 2 of them, walking away from Jerusalem, walking away, notice that, said to the stranger who joined them, "But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel." Yes, and besides all this, it is now the 3rd day since these things happened. Luke 24:21. We had hoped. Past tense. Hope, for them, was already in the grave.
Matthew tells us something interesting about Holy Saturday. The chief priests and Pharisees went to Pilate and asked him to secure the tomb, because they were worried the disciples might steal the body and claim a resurrection. So they went and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone and setting a guard. Matthew 27:66. There's an irony here that almost takes your breath away. The enemies of Jesus took his promise of resurrection more seriously than his own disciples did. They sealed the stone. They posted guards. They did everything in their power to make sure that tomb stayed shut. And all of it, the stone, the seal, the soldiers, was about to mean nothing. But that's Sunday. On Saturday, the stone is still there, and the silence is deafening.
But silence doesn't mean absence. It just means we can't see what's happening yet. Because while everything above ground looked like the end, something else was unfolding beneath the surface.
Every time Catholics recite the Apostles' Creed, they say something that most people say quickly, without stopping to think about what it means. He descended into hell. What does that mean? Where was Jesus on Holy Saturday? Was he simply lying in a tomb, his body wrapped in linen, the world assuming the story was over? The Church's answer, drawn from Scripture and the writings of the earliest Christians, is extraordinary. While the disciples were hiding behind locked doors, while the stone was sealed and the guards were posted, Jesus was doing something else entirely. He was descending to the dead. To understand this, we need to understand what the ancient Hebrews believed happened when someone died. They called it Sheol, the realm of the dead. Not quite heaven, not quite hell as we think of it now, a place of waiting, a shadowy underworld where the souls of the dead existed, cut off from God, unable to enter into the full presence of the divine. This included everyone, the righteous and the unrighteous alike. Abraham, Moses, David, the great figures of the Old Testament who had lived and died in hope of a promise they had not yet seen fulfilled. They were waiting. For what, they perhaps did not fully know. Peter, in his first letter, gives us a stunning glimpse of what happened on that Saturday. For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the Spirit, in which he went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison. 1 Peter 3:18-19. He went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison, to the dead who were waiting.
This moment has a name in Christian tradition, the Harrowing of Hell. The word harrowing is an Old English word meaning to plunder, to ransack, to go in and take what belongs to you. The image is visceral and magnificent. Jesus, having conquered sin and death on the cross, descends into the realm of the dead, not as a prisoner, but as a king. He proclaims the victory. He opens the gates. He leads out the captives who had been waiting, in some cases for thousands of years, for this moment. The ancient homily for Holy Saturday, one of the oldest pieces of Christian writing in existence, imagines Jesus speaking directly to Adam in the underworld. It is worth hearing in full. I am your God, who for your sake have become your son. I, who am above the heavens, descended to you who are beneath the earth. Awake, O sleeper, and rise from the dead, and Christ will give you light. Ancient homily for Holy Saturday, circa 4th century. This is what Holy Saturday actually is beneath the surface. Not just a day of grief and waiting, a day of liberation. A day when the oldest prisoners in human history heard footsteps coming down toward them and realized that everything was about to change. The harrowing of hell is not a medieval invention. The threads of it run through the whole of Scripture. The prophet Isaiah spoke of a light dawning in the place of darkness. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness, on them has light shone. Isaiah 9:2. The Psalms speak of God's presence even in the depths of Sheol. Where shall I go from your spirit, or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. Psalm 139, 7-8. Even in the place of the dead, God is there. Even on Holy Saturday, God is not absent. He is working in the darkness, in the silence, in ways that no one standing outside the tomb could possibly see.
Holy Saturday is unique in the entire Catholic liturgical calendar. It is the only day of the year on which Mass is not celebrated. There is no Eucharist. The tabernacle is empty, the consecrated hosts having been consumed or moved on Holy Thursday. The altars are bare. The churches are stripped. This is not an accident or an oversight. It is a profound theological statement. The Church is saying, today we sit in the emptiness. We do not rush past it. We do not try to fill the silence with activity or noise. We hold the grief. We wait. In many parishes, the faithful are invited to pray before a cross or image of the crucified Christ throughout the day. Private prayer, quiet reflection, the kind of stillness that our busy lives rarely allow. And then, as darkness falls, everything changes. The Easter Vigil is the oldest and most sacred liturgy in the entire Christian calendar. It begins after nightfall on Holy Saturday, because it is, in every sense, the night watch. The Church staying awake, waiting for the dawn of the resurrection. The congregation gathers outside in darkness, no lights, no candles, just the night. And then a fire is struck, a new fire, blessed and kindled from nothing, representing the light of Christ entering the world. From that single flame, the Paschal candle is lit. The deacon or priest lifts it and processes into the darkened church, singing 3 times, Lumen Christi, the light of Christ, Deo gratias, thanks be to God. And the congregation responds each time, their voices growing louder. One by one, candles are passed through the crowd, each person lighting their candle from the flame of their neighbor, until the entire church is glowing with hundreds of small flames. The darkness is pushed back, light multiplies, and no one flame is diminished by giving its light to another. It is one of the most beautiful images in all of Christian worship, and it happens on Holy Saturday, on the day of silence, on the day that looks from the outside like defeat. Then comes the Exsultet, the ancient Easter proclamation, chanted by the deacon in the candlelit church. It is one of the oldest hymns in Christianity, tracing the entire story of salvation from the fall of Adam to the empty tomb. And it contains one of the most startling lines in all of Christian liturgy, a line so bold it almost seems like a mistake. O happy fault, O necessary sin of Adam, which gained for us so great a Redeemer. The Exsultet, Easter proclamation. O happy fault, felix culpa in Latin. The Church is not celebrating sin, she is marveling at what God did with it. That the fall of humanity, as devastating as it was, became the occasion for something even greater, the incarnation, the cross, the resurrection. God did not just fix what was broken, he made it into something more glorious than it had been before. That is the audacity of Easter, and it is proclaimed in the dark on Holy Saturday, before a single bell has rung or a single Alleluia has been sung. The Easter Vigil is also the night the Church baptizes. Those who have spent months or years preparing, the catechumens, are fully initiated into the Church on this night. They are baptized, they receive confirmation, they receive the Eucharist for the first time. Why this night? Why Holy Saturday? Because baptism is not just a ceremony, it is a participation in the death and resurrection of Christ. Going into the water is going into the tomb. Coming up out of the water is coming up into new life. Paul makes this connection with breathtaking clarity. We were buried therefore with him by baptism into death, in order that, just as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, we too might walk in newness of life. Romans chapter 6, verse 4. Holy Saturday, the day of the sealed tomb, is the perfect night for this sacrament, because the whole point of baptism is that you go into the darkness and come out the other side. You go into death with Christ and come up into resurrection with him. The night that looks like ending is actually the night of new beginnings.
Holy Saturday occupies a unique place in the theology of the Church. It is not simply a gap between 2 more important days. It is a day with its own meaning, its own weight, its own place in the story of salvation. The Catechism of the Catholic Church describes it this way: Christ lying in the tomb is the great Sabbath rest. Just as God rested on the 7th day after the work of creation, Christ rests in the tomb after the work of redemption.
The old creation had its Sabbath. Now, the new creation has its own. This is the day the Church calls the Great Silence, not because nothing is happening, but because what is happening cannot be seen. The harrowing of hell, the proclamation to the dead, the unlocking of what had been locked since the fall of Adam, all of it unfolding beneath the surface, invisible to the world standing outside a sealed stone. Saturday is not absence, it is hiddenness. And in the theology of the Church, those are two very different things. When Jesus was in the tomb, the disciples thought the story was over. They were wrong. Something was happening. In the darkness, behind the sealed stone, beyond what any human eye could witness, that was about to change everything. The harrowing of hell was not nothing. Holy Saturday was not a pause between two important days. It was, in its own way, the hinge of history. The spiritual tradition has always understood that God works in hiddenness. The seed in the ground looks dead before it breaks open. The dawn is darkest just before it arrives. And the soul that feels most abandoned by God is sometimes the soul in whom God is doing his deepest work. The mystics called it the dark night of the soul. St. John of the Cross wrote about it from a prison cell. Mother Teresa lived a version of it for nearly 50 years, writing in private letters about the silence she felt in prayer, even as she radiated joy to those around her. And yet none of them, not John of the Cross, not Mother Teresa, not the disciples hiding in that upper room, were abandoned. They were, in the language of Holy Saturday, in the tomb, which means they were exactly where the resurrection happens. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Psalm 23, verse 4. Even through the valley, not around it, not airlifted over it, through it, with God present every step of the way, even when that presence cannot be felt.
I want to come back to the women for a moment, because they often get overlooked in the Holy Saturday story, and they shouldn't. Mary Magdalene and the other women did not run. They did not hide behind locked doors. They sat with the grief. They watched where the body was laid, and they prepared, even on a day when there was nothing they could do, nothing they could fix, no tomb they could open. They prepared the spices and ointments for the burial. The women who had come with him from Galilee followed, and saw the tomb and how his body was laid. Then they returned and prepared spices and ointments. On the Sabbath they rested according to the commandment. Luke 23, 55 through 56. They rested, they prepared. They showed up the next morning at the crack of dawn with everything they needed to care for the body of someone they loved. They did not know the stone would be moved. They went anyway. That is what faith looks like on Holy Saturday. Not triumphant, not certain, just faithful. Just showing up, just preparing, even when you don't know what you're preparing for.
There is one more figure who belongs in the Holy Saturday story, and she is perhaps the most important of all. Mary, the mother of Jesus. Catholic tradition holds that Mary alone, of all the disciples, of all the followers, of all who had walked with Jesus, kept the flame of faith alive on that day. While the apostles hid and despaired, while hope collapsed around them, Mary believed, not because she was unaffected by grief, but because something in her, the same Fiat that had said yes at the Annunciation, held firm even at the tomb. This is why Saturday in the Catholic tradition is dedicated to Mary. Every Saturday throughout the year carries her memory, and Holy Saturday carries it most of all. She is the model of the Church on that day, faithful in the darkness, certain of what she cannot yet see, keeping the flame alive until morning. The Catholic Church makes a deliberate and striking choice on Holy Saturday.
It is the only day in the entire liturgical year on which Mass is not celebrated. The altars are stripped bare. The tabernacle is empty. The sanctuary lamp, that small flame that burns continuously in every Catholic church in the world to signal the presence of the Eucharist, is extinguished. This is not pastoral oversight. It is theological precision. The Church is doing what she has always done, making visible what is invisible. And what she is making visible on Holy Saturday is this: the body of Christ is in the tomb. The sacrifice has been made. The work is finished. And now the world waits. It mirrors something the early Church understood deeply, that worship is not just something we do with our minds. It is something we do with our bodies, our spaces, our silences. An empty altar says something that no homily can. A dark tabernacle says something that no amount of words can fully capture. The Church has been holding this silence for 2,000 years, not because she doesn't know what's coming, but because she knows that some truths need to be felt before they can be understood. Here's what we know that they didn't. We know that on the other side of that sealed stone, on the other side of that silence, on the other side of the darkest Saturday in human history, Sunday was coming. Not maybe, not if they prayed hard enough or believed correctly or did everything right. Sunday was coming because God had promised it, and God does not break his promises. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Jeremiah 29:11. The disciples didn't know that on Saturday morning. The women preparing their spices didn't know it, but we know it. We know it because we've read the end of the story. We know it because 2,000 years of men and women have staked their lives on the empty tomb and found it to be true. And because we know it, because Sunday is always coming, we can sit in the Saturday without despair. We can hold the silence without being crushed by it. We can be in the tomb and trust that the God who raised Jesus from the dead is the same God who is at work in our darkness. The stone will move. It always moves. Holy Saturday is not the end of the story. It is the breath before the song. It is the dark before the dawn. It is the last moment of winter before the whole world breaks open into spring. And if you are living in that moment right now, if you are in your own Saturday, in your own sealed tomb, in your own silence, I want you to hear this. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are not alone. The God who descended into hell to find the lost is the same God who knows your name, and he is coming. Weeping may tarry for the night, but joy comes with the morning. Psalm 30, verse 5. Sunday is coming. Christus resurrectus. Christ is risen.